This is one thing I'll show you. I live in Texas. I live in Dallas. All right, and I've done this, and this is just to show you the size of scale that Ian alluded to. This is to scale. This is the state of Texas over the U.S., over Europe. And one thing he said it was very important to actually make sure you bring it across. The USA is one country, but it's 50 different markets. It is so every single state has different nuances. And over the last 20 or 30 years, or even 40 years, those markets themselves, in the country itself, have split up into different regions. So it's not just everyone speaks English in one market. There's 3 markets that speak 3 different versions or 4 dialects of Spanish. You got Caribbean, you got Latino, you got Mexican, right? I live in Texas, all Mexican. It's like saying English and Irish speak the same language. Excuse me, I'm Irish. Different culture, all right? So that's one of the things that's important to understand as well. But just give you an idea of the size of the country. So you got this is just a to scale, Texas over just Europe in itself. So again, some of the things that Ian again alluded to, which is fantastic because it just makes my life easier when presenting it. So here are the 4 steps growing into the U.S. market. You've got TTB, we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. Choosing the distributor, 100%, making sure you actually align yourself correctly to you, not to them, but to you. Right? At the end of the day, it's your brand, not theirs. All right, that's the most important thing is they will tell you what you want to hear. As soon as you walk out the door, they have a different impression. So make sure that you're aligned to who you want to be aligned to and the people that you want to work with. Understand the markets, understand the states. Like Texas alone, when we talk about Texas, we talk about 4 different markets alone within the state of Texas. You've got Dallas, you've got Houston, you've Austin, and San Antonio. All right, they're completely different markets within one state. So understand where you're going to and how you're going to manage to do that. And choosing the right market to launch in is the most important. New York is sexy. LA is sexy. Bloody expensive. All right, to get to those markets because we call them pay-to-play markets. Everyone wants to go to New York. Everyone wants to go to Los Angeles. Unless you have the money to go into those markets, it is extremely expensive to do it. And Ian hit it right. Pick the markets that you know you can actually seed your brand and use that seed fund to grow into other markets. Start small. Manage your expectations. Make sure you understand where you're coming from, which is key. With this particular one, I decided to show you sort of the markets, and again, Ian, I'm pointing at you, but you actually hit all the same things I was going to talk about. But just to show you some of the things that we're talking about here, I'm going to do this, make my life easier. So, U.S. market, again, it is one country, but 50 markets. This breaks down, just for the fun of it, all the different types of markets that are available. All the red markets are classified as open markets. So they're basically 3-tier markets that you can go into and work within the 3-tier system, so classified as open markets. The orangey, or the sort of darker sort of orange ones up here, they're the control states. There's 17 of them, all right? And all of them are different. Control states are, as I'm saying, controlled, all the alcohol is controlled by the state government and how they distribute. Everybody wants to go after this one. This one here is Pennsylvania. It's the biggest one. Because Pennsylvania, with that particular one, once you hit Pennsylvania, it's basically open seasons for everybody else. A lot of the other control states tend to follow what Pennsylvania wants to do. But I will tell you, I launched a brand in Pennsylvania. That in 1 year, brand cost $25,000 just to get into the market. And the reason is that they state a requirement on what is required just to get into the state. So they want a number of tastings. You get X amount of liquor stores you can go into. You got to advertise in 3 magazines, and if you don't hit a certain number, they'll cut you. So they expect how much, they tell you what's required. So just be careful with control states. They're great once you get into them, but just control them. Franchise states are the yellow ones, so New Mexico, Georgia, and going up into the northeast, They're the franchise markets. Again, great markets to get into, but be careful when you go into franchise markets. Franchise means that the distributor of that market has the right to your brand. When you get into you sign a contract, it's very difficult to get out of it. So because it's a franchise to that particular market. So when you go into it, it's very hard to get out of it. And the only way to get out of it is you pay or you swap with somebody else. Right? I'll give you an example. With Zamora company that I work for in Georgia, actually another one's Tennessee, we have one brand and one distributor and everything else in another, and they know that they don't want to swap our one brand that we have and one left over into the other one. It'll cost us a fortune to do so. There's no point fighting it. So we're in that situation at the moment. How do you actually negotiate to taking one brand out and putting it with the rest of us? So that's one of the things you've got to be careful. And he says there's actually more than 4. There's 2 markets which are 4th state. There is. And it's called my hometown, Texas, and the other one is South Carolina. And 4th tier basically means importer, supplier, ourselves, importer, or supplier, distributor, we're at Southern, nationwide, Southern, and then it goes into retail. The 4th tier is the LD, the local distributor. Local distributor is a retailer that has a license to sell into the on-premise, which means that Southern, for example, does not sell to the on-premise. It has to go through a distributor, a local distributor, a retailer that can sell into the on-premise. So that's how the 4-tier system works. And Texas and South Carolina are the 2 brands for that one. So again, it's controlling those, understanding those markets, understanding what you're doing. So I said 17 controlled states, franchise states, understanding all the difference between all those. So just it's crucial, and be careful which ones you go into. And Texas is, and also one thing actually, my buddy here in the front reminded me, there are 3 basic regions. You've got the Northeast, Florida, Texas, and the West. Basically, it's California. So they're the sort of main regions within the U.S. So the 3-tier system, I said, is the supplier, importer, distributor, wholesaler, retailer on our premise. Technically, that's your 3-tier system. Unless you're looking, let's say, like Texas, where I live, which is Texas considered a 4-tier system, which is supplier, importer, Zamora, for example, distributor, wholesaler, Southern, R&DC, Class B, which is your local distributor that sells into the on-premise, and then retailer. So that's actually how the 4-tier system works, but specifically to Texas. And then control states, and there's 17 of those, and each of those has a different way of doing things, and then franchise markets on top of that. Also, picking your partner is key, as I said earlier on, and Ian alluded to the same thing. It's okay to say no, because at the end of the day, it's your brand. It's how you want to do it, all right? Make sure that you understand and make sure you have the right partnership so they understand it's your brand, not theirs. Sometimes you are in a situation where they want because they're missing something. So look at them, always look at, you can go on any of their websites and look at the brands they have, all right? And make sure that that within that category or that you're in, that's something that they will work with you on. So look at that and work out which are the best ones for you. They're just some of them. I mean, we work with Southern Glazers, and with this, they're not on every market. There's no distributor has national sales. None of them do. No matter what they'll tell you, they don't. Southern Glazers has about 40 states, and the rest of them have a good spread. But just be careful where you're going. But step number 1 is this: get through the Alcohol and Tobacco and Tax and Trade Bureau. This is TTB for short. This is tied to the U.S. Department of Treasury. You have to go through all this. You have to get your licenses, permits, label approvals, formulation colas, blah blah blah, all this type of stuff. I'll tell you, there's a friend of mine who had a gin that had it from France, from south of France, wanted to go into the U.S. market. Still hasn't launched in the U.S. market. They got so bogged down that they were so passionate, bogged down is the wrong word, beg your pardon, they were so passionate about their botanicals. They were thrilled, yeah, we are botanicals for all this. I helped to get through the TTB, and they got to one botanical. And TTB went, no. And she said, well, that's the most important botanical. It's not legal. Can't have it. And that was it. The brand, they couldn't, still hasn't launched because she refused, they won't change that one botanical. It could be a sugar, caramel versus a cane sugar, or color, or a specific root or specific flower. Just make sure that you have an alternative just in case that doesn't happen. That's important because there are certain things, like even going the other way around. We have a whiskey that a bourbon that we sell into, that we ship here into the US. It's down to the one sugar. We use a specific type of sugar in the US, which you can. In Europe, you can't use that sugar, so we have to use something else. So just be prepared that you have a plan B that TTB says you can't do it. It's usually down to a formula or an ingredient or a botanical that they get fussy about, all right? Because all the other categories they're fine with. So just make sure you have all that taken care of before you, and that's once you get past that, then it's kind of not smooth sailing, but it gets to the point you actually can get into the market. But TTB is basically the gatekeeper. Potential is huge. You can't understate it. It is the biggest potential market in the US, is the US. But as Ian said, be prepared. Do the homework. You know, it will pay benefits, but don't rush it. Take your time. Understand where you want to go. Don't push, because the resources are difficult, and it is. Somebody asked me a few years ago, said, how much would it take to get into the market? The company I work for called Zamora, 5 years ago was in 15 distributors and 15 different suppliers. It took us 4 years to get them all out of the contracts and put it all under Zamora USA. It took us that long to do it, but take your time. Seed your brand in your market. Use that opportunity to grow your brand in the US. And don't put all your resources in one place. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. All right? Be careful how you do it. And manage your expectations. You know, contrary to right here, it does take time. I think we're all three of us said the same thing. It takes time. Just don't push it. Just take your time. George Clooney did not make Casamigos and got 900 million in 3 months. 20 years. It took him to get that brand going. All right? Because I know, because the two of the friends of mine actually helped do all the design work on it. It took him almost 20 years to get that brand up and running. It wasn't overnight. There's no such thing as an overnight success. You may not know the brand till somebody pays 900 million for it. They go, oops, daisy, that's great. No, it took him 20 years to get that brand up and running. So just, once you do the benefits, if that's what you want to do, great. But, that's always the best thing is to sell it. Just make sure that you do it for the right things for you. And again, Ian's right. Feet on the street. Invest in your brand. The only people that can sell your brand better than you is you. Wholesalers will say, "Oh, you will look after your brand." No, the brand is yours. They'll help you, and they're great. And once you pick the right partners, fantastic. But at the end of the day, who sells the brand better than you? You. I think it was just great. So thank you very much. And good luck with your brands. I mean, I wish everyone every success, But as I said, take your time. You'll get there.